Shalom and welcome to another episode in our series called Journeys with Paul. Today I'm actually standing on one of the structures that were a part of the ancient harbor at Cenchreae. Paul used this harbor at the end of his second missionary journey. We're going to talk about that in this new episode. Acts chapter 18 is where we find Paul at the end of his mission journey. He just spent a year and a half at nearby Corinth, and now he's at this ancient port of Cenchreae. You can see it behind me. Portions of the ancient port are still there, although some of the ruins are from a later period. However, I'd like to consider what Paul was thinking and how he was processing this part of his spiritual walk and his call as a missionary. He's already spent a year and a half at Corinth, and that must have been a challenge in itself. And when Paul now comes to this port, I always I wonder if Paul was in need of being re-energized. I wonder what his ministry exhaustion level may have been at that point. We all get tired in ministry, and perhaps you do too. But also, as he looked out to the open sea that you also can see behind me, I always wondered if Paul considered what was next for him. This ended his second journey, and of course we know now through the book of Acts that there would be a third journey, and that would even be longer. He would actually return to Ephesus at the end of his second journey from this port. Incidentally, he would sail to Ephesus and leave Aquila and Priscilla there en route to Israel. But on his third journey, he would spend more time in Ephesus and, of course, then sail back to Caesarea. He'd go to Jerusalem. He would be confined in Caesarea for a couple years, and then his sailing experience to Rome. And, of course, that was a difficult challenge as well. He gets shipwrecked in that journey. And then, of course, in Rome, he most likely is able to reach other regions around Rome, maybe even to Spain. Paul didn't know what was ahead for him. When he boarded the boat here from this harbor, I wonder if he asked God, I'm not sure what you still have for me to do. The journey may be uncertain, God, but I still want to serve you. Even despite the unknowns, And of course, the unknown of sailing. Back in those days, there was no certainty to that either. So I would like to pause to think and try to process what Paul was contemplating as he stood at this harbor and as he boarded his boat in order to sail back to Ephesus and then back to Israel. Thankfully, I don't think he ever lost his mission fervor, if you will, his passion to share Jesus with everyone. I'm sure he needed a break, and we all need a break once in a while also. But Paul found his strength in his purpose, in his call. And as we see this port, and knowing that Paul was here, it just makes me so appreciative of how he endured all the many challenges in taking the good news of Jesus to the world beyond him. Even though the journey was uncertain, he entrusted his journey and walk of faith to God. May we do the same as we not only face maybe the unknowns, maybe we don't know where the next journey will take us, but yet we entrust our walk of faith to God's care. One thing is certainly for certain, Paul realized, even as Moses would share with Joshua back in the book of Deuteronomy, he assured God's presence with him. And Paul went with that promise himself, knowing that God would never leave him nor forsake him, despite the unknown journey ahead. So wherever God takes your sail and your journey to the unknowns, or perhaps to difficult circumstances where it may be indeed a challenge to continue to share your faith, let's all strive to be like Paul, who endured the challenge and ran the race faithfully. So be encouraged in your walk of faith and trust God for all of your journeys of life. Until next time, shalom.